Welcome to Ed Tech Talk, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of educational technology, course design, and feature faculty insights in higher education. I'm your host, Joy Ray, and in this episode, we are joined with Becky Howell, the Department Chair for Social and Behavioral Sciences. Today, we are discussing self-care, but before we get started, Becky, would you mind introducing yourself?
Of course. My name is Dr. Becky Howell. I have been a department chair for about 6 years and have been teaching psychology for more than 20 years.
Wow, that is a lot of experience.
Yeah, and this is one of my big passions. So,
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited to have you here to discuss this topic. Self-care is something that is so important, and I figured with winter break coming up, it can be an extra stressful time, but it's also a time that we can use to recharge our batteries. And so I wanted to talk about this topic. And when we practice self-care, we're able to show up more for those around us. So would you mind first kind of defining self-care for us?
sure. Self-care is really kind of, well, I mean, it's a big concept right now, but the biggest piece of it is that you are purposely choosing things to promote both your own health and your own well-being. So it's actions as well as taking the time to think about it. And it helps to lower and manage your stress levels. It helps to decrease risks of things like illnesses, and typically it helps increase your energy. So all of it can have a very big impact on kind of your overall well-being.
Yeah, that is great. Um, every day we're often tasked with like taking care of a bunch of people around us at work. It might be students or supervisors at home. It could be kids or siblings, parents, partners. And then in life, it's just your friends and the people around you. With all of these people, it's easy to kind of overlook or run out of time to think about yourself. So, and you kind of talked about this already, but why is it so important to care and focus on ourselves sometimes?
Well, our society's kind of big on burning the candle at both ends type of scenario where, we're constantly go, 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 go. And you've got to be productive all of the time. But in the process of that, we don't think about the consequences of that. We don't think about how it can lead us to burnout or depression or issues with anxiety or, again, health implications of some sort. And so when we engage in self-care, it helps to reduce some of those things. It helps to reduce those issues that we have with our body. It helps us to be more productive. It helps us to improve our concentration. And I know it sounds counterproductive because we should just go, go, go. But you have to slow down sometimes and take the time to allow your body to recharge, your mind to recharge, spiritual energy to recharge. I mean, there's many, many, many different factors of wellness. And when you look at each one of those, they're vital to our overall health. Without them, we're going to burn out. Our body is going to basically say, you're ready to take a break now, whether you want to or not. And it usually comes out in the form of sickness.
Hmm. That's very true. I feel like I always get sick kind of right before vacation or something. And that's just because, you're go, go, go trying to get everything ready. And I think of the song Life in the Fast Lane. I think we've all experienced burnout at one point or another, sometimes in home life and sometimes here at the office. And so being able to mitigate that and try to not get to that point is something really important that we need to be able to learn for ourselves because it's different for each one of us. So, what are some examples or different self-care practices that we could use?
Okay, so it really depends on which one you want to focus on. If you're looking at, let me back up and just say, okay, there are a bunch of different pillars of self-care if you think about it. You have to do things for yourself physically, or you have to do things for yourself mentally, emotionally, environmentally, spiritually, socially, recreationally. all of those. And within each of those, there's a gazillion different types of practices that you could actually do. But it's kind of which one are you really focusing on at the time? And we often neglect to focus on all of them. We do just one. Like a lot of folks will say, "Hey, I'm just going to work on physical exercise," which is amazing and it's wonderful and it's really good for us. But that's not the only one that's important. So when you're thinking about self-care practices, again, you're going to look at the different parts. So if we're thinking, let's say, physical health, for example, this would be things like taking a walk, proper nutrition, getting enough sleep, taking care of your hygiene, things that, you should do, avoiding drugs and alcohol, um, going to the doctor when you don't feel well. Those are all self-care practices. And we think, okay, that's just what you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
But how often do we remember, hey, we should drink some water right now? Staying hydrated, things like that. They're so super important to us, and we don't necessarily remember to do those. When you're thinking about the office, how long do you sit at your desk before you actually move? All of that's kind of the physical stuff. If we're looking at, let's say, our emotional side, taking time to reflect, thinking about doing things like journaling or being creative or doing something like listening to music or doing things that help with our mood and our overall sense of just self, setting boundaries, things like that. Those are all self-care practices. And I know we're like, setting boundaries? What? But sometimes it's really important to just take a minute and say, hey, I don't have to engage in that water cooler talk, or I don't have to engage in the negativity around me. That's all kind of protecting our emotional well-being. It can be things, our intellectual well-being for that matter. How often do we take time to read a book that's actually for fun or for pleasure, or watch a documentary, or to do a puzzle, or play a game, or whatever? I mean, just where we're taking a moment to do something that both inspires us and challenges us and makes us think. And it doesn't have to be work related. Um, it can be. You certainly can, read a research article or do professional development. All of those are intellectual pursuits.
I really liked that because it wasn't just like do these things. It was you could easily not do things. And that helps protect yourself by not participating in certain things, but also participating in things are forms of self-care as well. And when we think about it, you're like, there's a bunch of different pillars, and we need to be able to partake in all of those different pillars. But sometimes things can count for multiple pillars. So it's not like, oh, I need to pick one thing from each of the pillar options. You can do something that contributes to multiple pillars, and you're partaking in all of them to help refresh your mind. And so I really like that as well. Sometimes it almost seems like you're taking on another responsibility by trying to think about yourself. But when you do it, it helps rejuvenate your mind, I think, and not looking at as I gotta add something else to my other tasks, right? Yes, exactly.
It's just another task to do. I got to do this.
Exactly. Because if it's fun, then you'll want to do it, right?
Yes, except you might feel guilty for doing it. Oh,
It's true.
a lot of folks have a hard time giving themselves a break
Yeah.
because they feel like they're supposed to be constantly doing something.
Where do you think that guilt comes from? And how can people work to minimize that guilt? Because that is something very, very real.
It is. Our society is really notorious for saying you must work, 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 work. And part of that is, taking 5 minutes. You can, a lot of times it's really valuable to actually schedule it where you say, these 5 minutes are for me. And it can be 5 minutes of every hour where you get up, you stretch, you get some water, you go to the bathroom, you talk to other people, Whatever it happens to be. It's really about setting those boundaries for yourself and setting those expectations for yourself that I'm important and I'm going to be more productive if I give myself the opportunity to recharge or reinvest in myself in some way or another. Um, and it doesn't have to be long. It can be, bring in those healthy snacks to the office. Take 5 minutes to kind of straighten up the stuff on your desk so that you feel a little bit better. There's so many different things that you can do. It's not good for us to stare at the screen all day long. you know,
Very
Think of
true.
it that way. You can't just, I'm not going to sit here and all day. It hurts your eyes.
It does. It does. Um, I I like that we're talking about this because when we stress, we often get into that fight or flight mode, and it's difficult to get out of that cycle when you start to get in that cycle and when that cycle has become a habit. And so being able to start small and work up to taking that time for self-care to help break that cycle of fight or flight is really important.
Yeah. And it really can be just 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It does not have to be, okay, I'm going to spend an hour doing this. Um, it's hard to find a chunk that big, but you can find 5 minutes. I mean, that's the same time that you would be sitting there scrolling on your phone or something else along those lines. So you just have to make a conscious effort. And that's kind of the big thing with self-care is you just have to actually make that effort to prioritize yourself. I know that sounds silly, but that is the bottom line of it.
Hmm. And we have to be careful because sometimes the scrolling on your phone, people might think of it as a form of self-care, but really sometimes if you're scrolling through social media, you might be comparing yourself to other things and it's not self-care because you're not prioritizing yourself with that.
No, because there's a lot of negative energy on social media, or it could give you an example of that. Let's say that you went through, I don't know, a recent breakup or something, and you start scrolling through and you see all the things that your former partner did last weekend. And is that bringing you any kind of joy?
Mm-mm.
No. Or you could get into a lot of the other stuff of political ads or any of that. And it doesn't bring joy and it doesn't bring peace. It doesn't bring happiness. It brings on, as you say, more stress.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Well, I know we've talked a little bit about personal and also workplace professional self-care. Um, but how can we help manage work-related stress and prevent burnout in the workplace?
well, again, that comes back to the self care as well. Even while you're sitting at your desk, you can do many, many things to help yourself every single day, so that you can kind of have that more of a balance. Balance is kind of a key. And it's not, a lot of people talk about work life balance, and it's not really that so much as it's just balance every day, body balance, mind balance, where you really are taking that time to be sure that you are important, but also you're getting the job done, the things done that you need to do. Um, Reminding yourself to breathe, just something as simple as that. How many people go, 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 and they're like barely breathing at all? And, taking those deep breaths, centering yourself for a minute. You could do a stretch. Um, Again, you can turn your eyes away from the screen. You don't have to respond to emails. You've probably heard my email dinging right here as we've been on this because it does. You can turn that sound off. Um, and sometimes that's really important where, okay, I'm going to focus for 5 minutes. That's self care in and of itself and setting those priorities. This is what I need to do at this period of time. This is what I need to do at this period of time. So boundaries are a big part of it. And that's personal boundaries, work boundaries, after hours, turning off work. A
Hmm.
lot of people struggle with that one.
Yeah.
And then your boss may get angry at you for it. And you can say, hey, I'm not on the clock right now. And that is okay. And granted, there are some things that you do have to handle. But other things you can say those I will take care of on Monday morning, or I will give myself an hour and then I'll go back to that, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Um, talking about like you hear the dings. I've been getting little messages on my watch about things coming in, and I just recently got a new phone and I haven't been able to switch off those notifications because you're constantly, you have your phone on you all the time and you're inundated by advertisements, text messages, email notifications, and instant messaging. And so your attention is being pulled in multiple different directions. And to be able to have focused time to be able to do certain things is beneficial. I know preparing for this, I've read things about what you can do, and one of it is schedule time for emails and replies and have that time scheduled so you know when it will be taken care of, but that it you have other time to focus on other things and you could kind of ignore almost your inbox at least for that until you get to that set time, which is great.
Yeah. And prioritizing. I mean, there are some things we all think, oh, we got to get back to it right now. But what's important right now? What do I need to focus on right now? I kind of think about our creative flow, and that if it's constantly interrupted, you are not going to do your best work. But if you want to be productive, sometimes it is scheduling that specific time to do different tasks. Our calendars are great ways to do that. You can say, okay, for this hour, I'm going to block this time. Nobody can interrupt me. I'm going to be working on this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's totally okay.
It's important to block that time because
Yeah,
people will try to schedule you for certain times, and if it seems like you're open, they'll take that time right up.
they will. And, it's funny. Sometimes I get more done at home than at work when I have a remote day, simply because when I'm at work, people come in and out of my office all day long. And you get interrupted every time you're doing something and you never get to finish it. So that's where it's the key, shutting your door, blocking your calendar, that kind of thing, to where it says, okay, this is that time that I'm going to devote to this. And, it does help with productivity. But also you should do that for your breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Schedule those as well.
That's true. So, how do you like to stay organized and productive?
I play with my own brain sometimes, which is kind of fun. I use my calendar a lot, but I also love to use sticky notes. And let me tell you why I use sticky notes. I use a couple of different colors, and one is like, this is priority for today. These things have to be done today. Another color is these things have to be done this week, and then a third color is these things have to be done sometime this month. And so I already know sort of like, this is the stuff that I have to finish up today. And I love to be able to scratch it off. And I know this sounds funny, but it's actually playing with your own brain, because it's giving you that little reward to say, I did that.
Mm.
I finished that. And when you go back and look at it, you can say, hey, look at all the things that I accomplished today. And it helps you to kind of, again, stay productive, but also reward yourself even in this own little thing of, I did that. I finished this, I finished that. So where it's not just this constant long to-do list that you have so many things still left to do. So if you have that short list, you can pick it up, throw it away, and you're like, I completed my whole list for today. It sounds really silly, but it is really actually giving you that extra little boost and showing you, and that's where it can be the smallest little stuff on this list, but it shows you that you are accomplishing tasks and that you are being productive. And it also helps you to really prioritize what is important today, what is important later, that kind of thing. So I know it sounds funny, but you can do that within your calendar as well, to where, you have this hour, I'm going to do these 3 things and mark them off, a checklist of some sort. Oh, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I like to utilize so many different forms. I have like my own little checklists that are like in my phone or in my computer, but sometimes I still like to write them down. And, sometimes you might have something pop up that you did but wasn't on your list, and you just got to write it on your list so that you get the little joy of, I need to show myself that I did something, even
Right.
though I had all of these things on my list that I didn't get to yet.
Right. that is a form of self-care. It is giving us that little accomplishment.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was like the little dopamine boost, right? Of
It is.
I did it.
I
Yeah.
did it. And also if you're doubting yourself, if you get that guilt piece in there, again, you can go back and say, look, nope, look at all the stuff that I accomplished today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and,
Or
and it,
I know sometimes at work it's the imposter syndrome of, am I really supposed to be here? Am I okay? Did I earn to be here? And to look at the stuff that you've accomplished in work is really important as well.
yes. Yeah.
So we know that learning and growing is important both in your personal life as well as work. So how do you ensure that you have time for professional development and learning in the workspace?
Well, I schedule it. I make sure that I try to do some form of professional development at least every week. And that can just be, it could be listening to a podcast like this. It can be looking at a webinar. It can be going to a conference. It's really, really important. I usually have a book that is professional as well as a book that is personal. And I make sure that I spend time with each of those typically daily, honestly, but it's definitely once a week, if nothing else. Again, depending on how boring it happens to be or how exciting it is, because you never know when you get started on them.
Yeah.
But it's just again setting that time aside where you say, "Hey, this is important, and I'm doing this week." And 1 hour, it seems like a lot, but at the same time, it's like, no, it's really not. Okay, so let's just say on Thursday from 2 to 3 o'clock, that's my PD hour. I'm going to devote that time. It's the same as blocking for anything else to
Mhm.
professional learning. And it kind of goes back to like the goals that you set for yourself. And you can relate it to that, or it can be something completely different if it pops up and you're like, oh, that looks like fun. Because learning
I
is fun.
yeah. I enjoy doing these podcasts because it's like my opportunity to learn from the people that I interview, and I'm getting something off my checklist, of I've accomplished something, but it's so enlightening for me to be able to listen to the people here at the campus, and I truly enjoy this part of my job right here.
And that actually brings a good point because you can learn just by talking to your neighbor. Let's say you're having an issue with a technology piece of some sort, and you're like, have you had this issue? How do you work through this? And that itself, that's also professional development.
Hmm. It's great. So, how do you balance career ambitions with personal well-being? Sometimes we get so caught up in, I want this promotion, or I want to be able to do this, and you think in order to get there, you need to work extra and you need to do those extra hours after hours and on the weekends, and how do you balance that?
I think of it kind of, and it sounds crazy, but, the work is still going to be there regardless of how fast you do it or how much of it you do. It's never going to go away. And so, is that what you really want to spend all of your time doing? I try very hard to leave work at work as much as possible. I know it's not a reality sometimes. And, there's certain times in the semester where, you've got to be on the ball and you've got to be responsible and working at multiple hours to be sure that the grades are in on time and that kind of stuff. But that's certain times in the semester. Most of the time it's like, okay, I'm off now. Unless it's an emergency, I am taking this time and I'm going to allow me to have my personal time, allow to do something that brings me joy away from work. Um, so it's really it's that balance again where your job cannot be your whole life, even though it may bring you that sense of purpose and that sense of meaning. You still have to put yourself out there and make yourself a priority sometimes. 'Cause you can't be productive and do a good job if you don't take care of yourself.
Hmm. I think it goes back into those different pillars, right? Work can
Yes.
definitely fulfill one or multiple of those pillars. But we need to make sure that we have things to take up those other pillars.
Yeah. I mean, you can spend all day staring at that computer, but your eyes are eventually going to start hurting, and you have to take that time to give yourself a rest.
Hmm. Definitely. So, how do you maintain relationships with family and friends when you're busy?
Well, honestly, we're always busy. It's I don't know too many people that can tell you that they're not busy. A simple phone call, a simple text message, where you schedule again ahead of time, say, "Hey, we're going to dinner this night. I don't care what you say. Put it on your calendar, and this is it." And then you go and you keep your phones away, and IT sometimes will go and say, "Okay, first person to pull out their phone has to pay for dinner." And it's an area where you just make sure you purposely say, okay, this is going to be it. Or it could be a weekly meeting. Like you say, okay, every Monday from 8 to 9, I'm going to do blank. So it sort of works along with the same things. You have to prioritize it. You have to make sure that you do take time to have, well, that one-on-one or that alone time with the people that you love, because they do get pushed to the back burner.
Mhm.
And I promise you, work is not going to call and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Your job is not going to appreciate you. It's not going to give you hugs. It's not going to tell you it loves you. It's just going to keep demanding things from you.
Hmm. Yeah. I have a friend who we try to get together, and we might not have an official date or time that we want to get together, but we'll be like, this day looks okay. Let's put it in our phones and schedule it. And that way it's more likely that will happen. And if we need to, we can modify it as needed, because things do come up that might require us to not be able to meet. But if it's on the calendar, we make more of an effort to not schedule anything else, and make it more of a priority.
And
And I think,
sometimes we have to trick ourselves that way.
mhm, yeah, it's the whole scheduling,
Hmm.
blocking out the time so that you can have it. It's really important. So, what kind of boundaries are good to set to protect personal time and energy?
Um, it's one of those things where, okay, let's say that you are hanging out with a coworker outside of work, which is fine. They can be friends as well. You say, we're not going to talk about work. Um, or it's okay for you to allow yourself to have downtime. I call it my just be time, where it is not scheduled time, but it is time for me to do whatever it is that I feel like doing at the moment. And sometimes that can be absolutely nothing. Sometimes it can be sitting on the couch with your dog and a book. Sometimes it can be relaxing in the backyard and just listening to the breeze and enjoying the sunshine on your face. Um, it doesn't have to actually be anything particular, but you have to let yourself have that time. You can't say, "Okay, what did you do this weekend?" Absolutely nothing. Okay, so you probably didn't do absolutely nothing, but is it okay to have those times where you aren't productive? And the answer is, of course, yes. And if you don't have that, you're never going to recharge. Um, so many of us don't spend time silent. I know we always have something going on in the background. There's always noise of some sort. It doesn't give us any time to reflect or to think or to allow our creative energy to go. And um, it burns us out. Our body needs that silence sometimes. Our body needs that time in nature. Sometimes this was said, it's nice to just take a quick walk and smell real air, not the cycled air that goes through a building, um, or to again feel a breeze, or to get a bug bite. I know that sounds awful, but it's
Those bug bites, they last with you for a few days though, and they
they do. But at the same time, are they not a reminder of the time that you were outside?
mm-hmm.
And
That's
you're like,
true.
I was out there, and you can scratch that little itch and be at the same time, and you can think about the campfire you were sitting at, or you can think about, the the tree that you were talking to or whatever it happens to be.
I love that flip that you do because I think of bug bites and I get so annoyed with them. They just itch. I'm like, where did this one come from sometimes? But learning to be positive, I think, and shifting that mindset to find the good and doing that for a bug bite is amazing. I never would have thought of that. And so that being able to be like, I was able to enjoy the outdoors with my kids or my partner or my friends and just be able to take in the beauty around me.
Yeah.
I think that is a great switch. And I wish I was at the beach right now with you, like
Yeah.
your tree in the water. Uh, it's just there is beauty all around us. And to be able to identify that is a talent and something that we can all become better at when we put in the effort for it.
And it may even be where, okay, go work outside.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get something done. Go sit outside and do it. And you'll find yourself breathing a little better and slowing down just a little bit.
Yeah, which is good. I know sometimes we can get caught up with our breath being in our chest and not very deep when if we can take the time to make sure our breath is going down into our bellies and into our backs and making sure it's expanding all of us, it's more refreshing.
It is. And
Mhm.
even just being mindful. We forget where we are sometimes. Time flies. And just taking a moment to be in the presence of wherever you are, how you're feeling, kind of grounding yourself to some degree. It's really easy to do that in nature, but you can do it any.
Mhm. I also liked talking about it's okay if you didn't do anything. I know as a mom and an employee, I'm like, oh, I should be doing the dishes. I should be wiping down this. I should be doing this, or I should be working out. I have a little bit of time. What can I do while the nachos are cooking in the microwave? Like, I could wipe down the counter. It's okay to not wipe down the counter
Mhm.
in that minute time frame. It's okay to just take a beat and be like, I'm exhausted and I just need to sit here on the couch for a while
Yeah.
because I'm I need a break.
We kill ourselves with the shouldas. The shoulda, woulda, couldas, as they all say, instead of I'm enjoying this moment right now, just right here, right now. I'm breathing and just enjoying myself for a minute of doing nothing or doing something that you enjoy, singing a song, whatever it is. And instead of stressing and worrying and having that anxiety come in there, that guilt again of I should have been doing this or I could have been doing this or oh, I wasted all my time doing this. It's never a waste. Um, it's one of those that sometimes it's exactly what we need.
Yeah. I like it's releasing those expectations because when you really sit down and look at it, what you thought was top priority might not necessarily be top priority. It can easily wait an hour or a day, possibly, and you could find a way to work around it. And it's releasing those expectations on yourself that really helps you be able to breathe and take that relaxation that's needed.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those that the kitten can find the dust bunnies for you, right?
Well, and the dogs just create the dust bunnies for me.
Exactly. But, it gives them a toy. It's
Exactly.
it gives you entertainment. You can look to see where the dust bunnies went and how big they get.
Mm-hmm. They can get pretty big sometimes.
Yeah. Yes. And that's okay.
It is. It is. Well, thank you so much, Becky. This has been such a fun conversation for me. Do you have any key takeaways that you would like to make sure someone gets from listening from this episode?
Oh yeah, if there's anything, there's really kind of three things. One, you have to make time for yourself. You are important. You are a priority. Your happiness does matter, and it doesn't mean you have to do everything that makes you happy. But if you don't take the time to engage in things that bring you joy or make you happy or bring you peace, your body will eventually shut down. And you have to do that. So making time its priority. The other is that you have to be compassionate with yourself. You have to care. You have to know that, okay, I'm important and that rest is vital to your being. You have to let yourself replenish. Um, again, you burn yourself out, and what good are you to anybody else? You're going to find your name on a headstone versus finding your name, you know, in a newspaper because of something you did or whatever else it happens to be. You've got to give yourself time.
Mm-hmm.
And then reflection. That's the other piece that is key. Give yourself time to think.
Yeah, I love those key takeaways. Reflection, especially because what works for you isn't going to work for me. And what works for us is not going to work for the person listening to this episode. And really being able to listen to your body and listen to yourself to know what helps recharge your batteries, even in specific situations, because in different situations, you might need this item more than this item. And being able to identify what you need most is really going to be key in helping recharge those batteries quickly for you.
Yeah. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same, you get the same results. You can't always do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working. Try something different.
Yeah.
Or don't try anything and allow yourself to breathe.
I like that. Well, thank you so much. I hope people will go away from this episode feeling the love that we have for people, but that they'll feel the love that they have for themselves and to be able to prioritize themselves.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of EdTech Talk. Tune in next time for more insights, discussions, and inspirations in the world of higher education. Until then, keep on leading and learning.